come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. And this to me is following the importance of following God. And so one of the things that this is how I sort of teach myself, so to speak. I ask a lot of questions. And so it says, come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and song. So my first question to myself was, why? Why would I do this? And so it immediately follows up and says, because for the Lord is the great God. He is the king above all gods. I've noted this before. I want to note this again. I'm not sure in which way he's using gods, right? Is it like actual supernatural beings? Is it the idea of a supernatural being, the idea of anything other than God? I'm not too sure, but he brings it up on many occasions, right? Psalmists and writers and all this kind of stuff bring it up on many occasions about other gods, but that the Lord is the God above all of those. He's the one who gives the power. He's the one still that oversees. He's still the one that created. They did not create. So if there are actual other supernatural beings, there was no creation in them, right? They may or may not have some power here on earth, but they don't have what the Lord has. They are not the ultimate judge of the earth, like we learned in the last psalm. And it says, in his hand are the depths of the earth and the mountain peaks. So from the highest high to the lowest low, that God has all of them. This is why we sing for joy to him. The sea is his, the dry land is his. There's nothing else, right? Like everything on earth, it's the sea and it's the dry land. That's it. It's water, it's land. He owns all of it. So he, from the highest heights, from the lowest depths, from the wet to the dry, he owns every single thing that nature makes. This is why, not nature makes, God makes. This is why we sing for joy to the Lord. This is why we extol him. This is why in verse 6 we bow down in worship, right? And then it says in verse 7, it says, for he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, the flock under his care. Today, if only you would hear his voice, right? If only you would hear him. This is what God says. Don't harden your hearts. So this is another thing that I want to take a minute on. So I'm going to read it. Today, if only you would hear his voice. Do not harden your heart, says God, as you did at Meribah, as you did that day at Massah in the wilderness, where your ancestors tested me. They tried me, though they had seen what I did. For 40 years, I was angry with that generation. I said, they are a people whose hearts go astray, and they have not known my ways. So I declared an oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest. This is what I'm saying when I say, which I mentioned earlier in the earlier psalm, this is what I say when I say, God chose this people, right? This is what I say. God chose this people, Israel. He chose them for a purpose, to be his ambassadors on earth, so that everyone in the entire earth knows who God is, right? So the way that they behave, the way that they speak, the way that they, right? And so he created all these laws in order for them to be the people of the Lord Almighty, no beginning, no end, right? From eternity, which means there was no beginning for him, reigning forever and ever and ever, which means there's no end to him. He created this people, or he saved this people from Egypt in order for them to represent him on earth. Well, guess what? They didn't. They didn't. And so because they didn't, so that 40 years, this is talking about the Exodus, when they travel 40 years, because when they started traveling there, they complained. When they went into the land that God gave them, they complained, oh, it's too scary. We can't go in there. We don't trust you, God, right? It's essentially what they said. We don't trust. I know you said you're going to give us that land, but we're really scared. Those people are really big, and we don't trust that you're going to give it to us. And so what they did was so instead they turned away from him. And so he made them roam for 40 years. Well, he said, they shall never enter my rest, God's rest. They shall never enter God's rest. Does this mean they will not sit with God for eternity? I'm going to suggest that it does, right? It's a big one, because they're his chosen people. So then what does that mean, right? To me, it means faithfulness is everything. Faithfulness is the thing. It is the most important thing, because there were people that were living in Israel that were not his chosen people. He talks about the foreigners all the time. In some of the Psalms, he talks about the foreigners. Any of the foreigners that reside with you, treat them like you would treat everybody else, right? These weren't people that God chose, plucked up, and saved from the rest of the world But what they were is they were faithful, and they were faithful to the Lord, right? They left whatever it was that they had, and they chose to follow the Lord. They sought God out, right? God didn't necessarily save those as people, but they sought God out. And so I just cautionary tale, right? Beware, whatever it might be. Like, beware. If you follow. And this is why I say, when I say like that whole love and faithfulness thing, um, that's the kind of thing that, like, he does love you. He is faithful to you, but you must be faithful to him, because what he's faithful to is righteousness, right? And justice. Those are the things that he's faithful to. He is completely upfront with people. He doesn't mince his words. He doesn't hold back any of the truths that he has for you guys. It's just us, you guys, us, for all of us as those who follow him. It's it's in front of us. I don't want to say it's clear. I hate using it's clear, because it might look clear in my eyes and it might not look clear in your eyes. Or you might look at that same exact verse and you're like, she is so 100% wrong. Like, I can't even believe she would have said something like that. Of course, the chosen ones go to heaven, right? So this is what I see when I look at it. And so I always just, kind of call out. I'd love to hear if you guys have a different